everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. My name is Cynthia Alvarez, and this is the Grand Boulevard Coalition show. And with me today, I have Lanette Vaughn. She is one of our interns. This is actually her last week here, so I'm glad that she was able to join us today so that we could have her for one last Can TV show, because our last few shows together, they've just been so, entertaining, so fun.
Yeah.
So good to talk about. Yeah, but it's been good. So we're glad to have her here again today. The topic for today is going to be talking about interracial couples. So Lanette's going to just talk to us a little bit about what she learned when doing her research for an assignment related to interracial couples and social work, how those two kind of go together, things that she's learned. And yeah, but any upcoming announcements for first, we have a youth talk coming up, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So I'll be showing our flyer next week for that, since I'll be here next Thursday. But as we get into it, Lanette, how are you?
I'm good.
It's good to have you.
I'm good, thank you. I love this. I love being here.
Okay. Well, what would you say this was one of your favorite things that you did for us at your...
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. I'm glad. Because I know it's not for everybody, but I feel like some people find their little niches,
Yeah.
And I think this was definitely your niche. You're really good. You're really good. So I'm glad.
I really enjoy it.
Okay. So
enjoyed.
Yeah. You enjoy it and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting into the questions then, why was this a topic of interest to you for this assignment?
Oh, because I don't know, ironically for a while now, I've just been thinking of how racism can be eradicated, right? But then I thought of poverty too, and it goes hand in hand with racism. Yes. And then I just thought about how randomly I got like a light bulb moment. I thought of the civil rights movement and how racism, interracial marriages increased since the civil rights movement. So in my research, I found that interracial marriages is going to increase and possibly eradicate racism because of the kids, production, like kids. Biracial kids just becoming more prevalent in our world, and which can really eradicate racism, right? Yes. But I also found that in the U.S. Census, lots of biracial people do not identify as Black. That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, like when you fill out like those government forms that ask for like to identify yourself, I feel like you don't even see a lot of options that are like biracial or like what specific mixes,
it's like Black, African. It's really race and not ethnicity to me in the demographic list.
Yeah. And I agree with that too, because I think even in the census too, they at one point didn't include like Hispanic, Latino. It was just like white, Black. So it's like I don't consider myself white. But a lot of Hispanics would have to put white, even though that wasn't really what we identified as. So I feel like they're getting better with it now, right? So I think that's important to talk about, especially with interracial couples, like you said, because their children are going to be mixed. So it's going to be so many different cultures coming together. Yeah. And so for this assignment, then, like, what was your purpose for this assignment? Like, what did you hope to like learn from it?
I hope to learn that it's actually, some type of societal thing out there that can help racism and things of that nature, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I feel like we talked about it a little bit when you were telling me about the topic that racism can be eradicated or like mostly like kind of going away slowly because of this,
because of these interracial couples, even not even just romantic. In my research paper, I didn't even just talk about romantic interracial couples. We also see an increase in platonic relationships. You see more diverse friendship groups. You really do. And they did find studies. It actually increased, I want to say 5%. 1%. Okay, so the Supreme Court ruled and got rid of like Jim Crow laws, whatever, in 1967. And then from 1967 to 2000, the 21st century, they found that it moved from 1% to 5%. Oh, wow. Literally. Okay. And so imagine where from 2000 to 2024, where the progress we're at.
True.
So just imagine how much more it could,
Yeah. That's a good point. So what would you say then was one of the more surprising things that you learned from that, basically? While doing your research.
I won't say what I found was surprising because I kind of knew that's what was happening. I just felt like it wasn't being talked about enough.
Yeah.
So like
Yes.
qualitative, quantitative research, sitting, analyzing groups. I'm nosy, even at a coffee shop, I'm looking, and I'm like,
observing.
I actually noticed 4 biracial couples walked past me today.
Wow.
This wasn't like this 5 years ago, so yeah, I wasn't surprised. I felt a little relieved that this really existed. Even when I was nervous to even find articles. I'm like, it's nothing on this.
Yeah.
Then I found a million articles.
Really?
I'm like, why isn't this being talked about?
Okay. Because I was going to ask, like, how hard was it for you to find articles related to
and I was
research?
so scared. I thought I couldn't.
Yeah.
There was so many.
Oh, okay.
So people are actually talking about it. It's just like a quiet
subject
thing.
That honestly, because I was going to say, I am a little surprised, too, that there is a lot of research on it, because I haven't heard too much about it either.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, the little things I have heard, historically, like you were saying, after the Civil War, I guess it jumped up a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong. Like, weren't there also like I know there was a lot of stigma with it, but weren't there also laws that were like preventing marriages, interracial marriages?
The Jim Crow law. You mean after the Supreme Court ruled 1967?
Yeah.
No.
Besides, so it was like the Jim Crow laws was like the main.
Oh, when the Supreme Court ruled to get rid of those laws, race, the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
It's not, racism is not still supposed to exist. That's why we don't have fountains that say only whites, only blacks. We just still, as a society, move in that way.
That's true. That's true. It's kind of like those unspoken, unsaid things. That's not necessarily in law or on, like you said, those signs, but people still kind of behave in certain ways that are kind of like, oh, this is not okay, kind of a little judgy about those relationships. Yeah. So I think that stigma, definitely, it still has not really gone away too much, especially if they're not talking about it that much either, which I feel like that's kind of surprising too. But that's really interesting. Okay. So how can learning about interracial couples help us in the social work field? Like, how do those go like hand in hand with that population?
I like that question because I was looking at a video on YouTube. I embedded it in my presentation last night on this topic. And as a social worker and having sessions with these different people in interracial populations and couples, whatever, it's just good to understand that they all face like different challenges to date each other. So on the YouTube video, it showed like a lesbian couple. One woman was black, one woman was white, and they talked about how the black woman's family took the white girl in with open arms, versus it was another couple that was a black man and a white woman, and the white woman's family did not like her boyfriend. It was just like a lot of different things.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think I have kind of heard stuff like that too, right? Especially with like gender roles and also like just racial, I guess, differences. Then it kind of depends on. Maybe certain families are more accepting than others, and I feel like I kind of have noticed that too.
And it gets tricky too culturally, because on a YouTube video, it was a Korean guy dating a black girl, and then if you look into Asian culture or Korean, there is strict. I won't speak for all Asians, but I know most marriages are arranged.
Right.
And let's talk about Indian couples. So just imagine like even being shunned from the family because you want to date outside of your race, and you know.
I don't know, causes those issues, I guess, within like when thinking about social work, right? One of the things you can do is like couples therapy. So with couples therapy, you're learning about these two different kinds of people and just learning about why they're coming into therapy in the first place, right? And I feel like one of those main things is the cultural backgrounds and differences, and like their families not being accepting of those. And we would all like to hope that, families don't get in the way of marriages and couples being together, but that's a big factor, right? Like you can't feel comfortable going to parties, going to family gatherings, like any kind of events, because you feel like a little out of place.
Yeah, the Korean guy said his mom would not talk to his girlfriend. They were together for like a long time. Yeah, clearly in love, but he said his mom just refused to talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in those cases, it'll probably end the relationship, right? Because then they feel like, well, what's the point then if, you know, my family's never talk to me again as long as I'm dating this person. Now I feel like my family dynamics are being ruined, and they're kind of weighing like, oh, well, I guess I got to choose one over the other. So that's really sad. It's definitely something that I haven't picked up on too much, but with interracial couples, I guess, therapy wise, I guess, what is like other things besides like cultural differences? I mean, that's the big thing, right? Like that's like the main thing, that cultural difference. But I guess communication too, right? That's another big problem that kind of comes up in couples in general. Yeah, but
for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I watched a different YouTube video too that I heard like of a therapist kind of giving her perspective on common issues that they come across when they work with patients, and social norms. I feel like gender roles. That's a big thing too. I feel like, especially in culture. Like for example, like in the Mexican culture, right? The man usually is the one that is bringing home the breadwinner of the family, and so the wife is supposed to, you know, cater everything to the man. When he comes home, they're supposed to have a meal prepared and serving the man. Like if even in parties, like if this is not even in your own home, but you're going to a party, there's still that expectation of like, oh, you brought your boyfriend to the party, serve your boyfriend the food, serve him, whether it's at his party or her party, it doesn't matter. Like there's that expectation.
Wow.
So it's kind of those things, and if the couple, if one of them is Mexican, the other one is not, then that's a whole other, you know, thing,
right? How does that look?
Yeah, I feel like
because they in the studies they did say Hispanic interracial relationships are flourishing, like all minority groups.
Okay.
So how does that look?
You know what? I can actually speak from experience because my partner is white and I am, so his family, it's all white. They're Polish. And so my family, I mean, my parents were born in Mexico. And so, you know, they have certain expectations of the man, like, oh, he needs to be the breadwinner. And I'm like, well, then why am I going to school? Like, you know, so I kind of have that, those conversations with my parents of like, you know, I'm making money so I can support myself and I can support my partner. And, there's a lot of those like expectations that they have of him, and then also like of me too, in certain, you know, situations. But
for sure.
I feel like it's definitely that conversation of like culture differences comes up between us a lot too. Do you have any experience with that? Like any interracial couples? Yeah,
I dated outside of my race. It wasn't fun, honestly.
Was it?
When we'll go out, you know, the death stares, and it just wasn't fun. And also, I felt like a lot of the times, I don't know, I was very self-conscious. I'm like, is this a fetish? Is this, I don't know, just my own little thing.
I think, that's another thing too. Like people that kind of date outside of their race because of fetishes. Like that's a whole other...
Like you have to genuinely like me. Like, do you think this is fun, or I don't know.
Yeah. And even like people that travel maybe to other countries, you kind of notice, because you obviously do not look like the people that you're visiting, they kind of tend to, there's a lot of stares, there's a lot of sometimes even harassment, and this is not to generalize, right? Like this is just some people's experiences that they have, that I've seen that they've shared on social media.
90 Day Fiance. Did you watch it?
I've heard, yeah. I've watched a couple, but not too much.
You literally just said it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's true too, right? Because the purpose of that show, they're coming from another country.
Someone from the U.S. and someone from overseas, and either the American moves to the country with their partner, or their partner moves to America.
Yeah,
it's like super like challenging. Imagine
it is. No, it is. 'Cause especially since you are also trying to learn the language, like that's a whole other hurdle that they have to go through just to try to even be with this person, like learn their language. And then if their family accepts them, like we talked about, like that's
a lot of adapting. It is.
So I guess what is the importance of, I guess for therapists, right? We have to learn a lot about cultural competence. Like, how does that go into working with interracial couples?
So competencies I look at as guidelines.
Yeah.
So every single competency is 10. Every single one is important.
Yes.
As we know, the first competency is to maintain an ethical, professional demeanor with your clients, and so on.
Yeah.
As you know, the competencies, they're not self-explanatory, but as social workers in this profession, we know that being ethical is very, very important. So not going in with biases with interracial couples. Yeah. Also with people that are a part of the LGBTQ community, just different populations, you can't go in with biases.
Yeah.
Following those competencies, every single one is important. I honestly can't even choose one.
Yeah.
Because every single one is important.
Honestly,
for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like definitely, I mean, everybody has biases, right? Like maybe sometimes they're kind of those internal biases that we have. But I know, like for me personally, if I was a therapist, I would like to be sometime in the future, honestly. With couples therapy, I feel like one of the things I would come across was if I had like a couple, one of them was Hispanic and the other one was maybe another. I feel like my, with my values and things, I would tend to align more towards the person who's Hispanic, but that I feel like that's a challenge, definitely. That's some therapists might go through.
That is a challenge.
Okay, so what are some other things you kind of learned when you were doing this assignment relating to interracial couples that you feel like?
I don't know. I just learned about the data and statistics. I did this assignment in stats because I'm taking stats this semester. Okay. So our main focus was to actually find data. My hypothesis was interracial couples will eradicate racism. Or potentially eradicate racism.
Yeah.
Because we never know. But yeah. So it was really our research.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I did hear too, like what you were saying, obviously like in the future, do you know like by what year that would happen? Like where a majority of children will be?
No, I was trying to find articles that stopped talking about from the Supreme Court ruling in 1967 to 2001. I want to know from 2001 to now, or 2001 to 2012, or so I am going to find more research for my paper. Okay. Because that was just a presentation, so I kept it brief. For my paper, I want to find modern day research.
That's true.
Even though we are in the 21st century, but I want to find research that's like recent.
Honestly, I feel like that's one of the hard things too when you write research papers. A lot of them are older and they're not really connected to today, basically. No, and I think I did hear too, like thinking about ethnicities and because America is such a melting pot of people, I feel like at some point they mentioned that white people will no longer be like the majority, and I think that they said the Hispanic population is kind of like coming, rising a lot, and I think that that's going to be like take over the majority. So I feel like, what do you think about that in terms of Hispanic, if whatever other race becomes the majority over whites, like with racism and things like that, like do you think it'll have an impact on that, or will things kind of stay the same?
I'm a black woman, and I strongly believe that every single person other than European has black in them. So the majority is going to be black people. Hispanics, we all have black in us. I've studied it, found research. It's true. We all have black in us. So black is going to be the majority.
Yeah,
historically. And I really believe in that. That's what I believe in. Yeah.
No, that's so interesting to think about too. I feel like, I don't know, it's definitely, talking about race for some people, it's a little like a touchy subject maybe. But I feel like it's just an important discussion to have with people, just to talk about that.
I'm such an advocate for African Americans, black people in general, and I know,
Yeah.
Yeah. Black people are going to be the majority.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay.
I feel like we are really called minorities to keep this superior stigma on white people. So that's why we have Asians and Hispanics, and because we're broken up. And it seems like it's gonna be challenging to even make all of these minorities the majority.
Yeah.
So in that way, it doesn't even make sense. That's why I'm like, everyone is black. Like, but they just make it so challenging.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, because of like everything that's happened in the past and things from slavery, things from genocides in other countries. And
Absolutely.
even here, things like that have happened.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely important to talk about, especially us as social workers too, talking about the topic of racism.
Hard topics. We talk about controversial.
Very, it can get very controversial.
I love to say that it's my opinion. Because another person might have found different research maybe, but what I found, the majority is going to be black people.
Yeah. So that's important to say too, right? Especially like in a show where we're kind of talking about educational topics. These are things that are our opinions based on research that you have found for your assignment, and I feel like it's important to share opinions and just, people can have different opinions on that, and that, as long as we're respectful about those things.
And we should be open to hearing, like, I'm willing to learn about, if you think I'm wrong, why I'm here to learn,
Yeah.
So.
Or offering another perspective, right? Because I feel like also, too, we're always like, someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong. But many people can be right about, different types of versions in that argument, whatever the argument or the situation is. There's a lot of information out there that it's just important to do your research and
absolutely
just to like I said, for us as social workers, do our research because we're working with different clients from many different backgrounds.
And in our profession, research is the number one answer. You can't say anything without research. If you don't have research on it, it's wrong.
Right.
And I learned that in public policy.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Policy is such an important class.
Everything has to be accurate. It has to make sense. It has to match up with data.
Yes.
So
especially like if you go into different professions in social work, like grant writing and doing things like that, you have to do a lot of research. Yeah. And
imagine presenting a grant to the Senate. Like, it has to make sense. If something is off, they don't want to hear it, because everything has to make sense. So, if you're studying social work, research is your best friend.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to bag up what you say.
Right. You got to be educated. I mean, that's the number one thing. So I guess thinking more about your MSW, since this is your last week, I kind of wanted to ask you your feelings. Yeah. How are you feeling, like, after having gone through everything? How did you like your experience with your internship and things like that?
It's getting real.
Yeah.
Personally, at 31 years old, I just never thought I would be a therapist right now. And I got one more year left.
Yes.
And I'm literally at the finish line. My last year is a research paper. They give us 2 semesters to write our capstone. And then I have another internship. So I have a year to focus on this huge paper, and I just can't wait to dive into this profession. It's my passion.
Yes.
I thank God that He allowed me to know exactly what I wanted to do when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy, and I thank you so much. Cap has taught me a lot, and I'll never forget you. And we're going to always stay intertwined.
Yes,
you know that.
Yes.
But
just like your other school wants you to come back to do a talk, I might want you to come back to do a little talk with the kids. Yeah. I think that'll be awesome. But no, I feel like I'm so glad that we were able to have you and to have all of our interns, because they all brought so many different perspectives to the table.
Yeah.
Like, we were blessed enough to have interns from literally different, walks of life, different races, different cultures. So I definitely learned a lot, and I feel like it was a learning experience for everyone.
Yeah.
Do you know where you're gonna intern next semester?
I don't.
Do you have any ideas, like what you would want to intern, where you would want to intern?
I chose hospitals.
Okay.
I chose agencies, family agencies.
Nice.
So I have a hospital on my list and 2 family agencies.
Oh, nice.
I don't really care where I'm placed.
Yeah. Just making the most of wherever you go.
Just making the most of wherever I go. Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
with that, I guess since we're basically out of time, I want to say thank you again,
No
Lanette,
problem,
so much
Cynthia.
for joining us. I hope I can have you sometime in the future. Maybe I'll hit you up.
You
We'll
will.
see. I
Hit me
will.
up.
I will. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.